But let's start with COVID. We've seen it's like COVID disappeared, right? Putin, love him, hate him. Most people hate him, but we got to give him credit for curing COVID is what it seems like. The science didn't change, but the political science has seemed to change. And so my question is, that we've seen the Democrats moving off of our presidential administration, moving off of restrictions, lockdowns, mask mandates, all these kinds of things. But is this maybe too good to be true? Is this maybe just they realize that those policies are killing them in the polls? And can we expect some of these things maybe to return after the midterms? What are your thoughts?
So I think that the election in Virginia was extremely influential on Democrats, as it was on many of us, right? Mm-hmm. To see that a bright blue or deep blue state like Virginia could go Republican across the board. And remember, the Republicans didn't just win, at the state level. They got the governorship, they got the AG, all those offices, but also right down to the local levels, down to school boards and, probably even dog catcher. And it was a wake up call, and when you read some of the internal messaging that we've seen coming out of the DNC and at the White House, some of that stuff's been leaked, and they're looking at that particular election cycle and using it as a predictor for what might happen in the 2022 congressional elections, and that's terrifying to Democrats. And you even have a lot of the traditional, left wing publications writing open letters to Democrat leaders saying, hey, you guys have got to pay attention to this. Because what Virginia proved is that, number one, Republicans are super motivated. They really hate these mandates, and that's driving, them to the polls in record numbers. And a lot of Democrats. There was an article, I want to say it was in the New York Times, where they surveyed Democrats, and it was very interesting. They asked Democrats to self-rate on a scale of liberalism, right? From very liberal to moderately liberal to not very liberal, but still a Democrat voter. And what they found is that only the very liberal cohort were in favor of mandates, and all the other groups of Democrats on that self-rating scale were opposed to mandates. And so the article didn't say this, but what jumped out to me immediately is that those other voting groups, the Democrats who don't like mandates, are likely to vote with Republicans, right, against a candidate who is a pro-mandate candidate. Now, it's a thorny problem for Democrats because what else they know about that group of very liberal folks who are still pro-mandate is that those are their most active volunteers and voters. Right. So they can't afford to lose that group.
They can't upset the regime. Yeah.
And they also can't afford to lose the moderate and more conservative Democrats. So that's a problem. Right. And I think what we saw on March 1st when Joe Biden gave his State of the Union address is that attempt to thread the needle. Right. To say that the pandemic is over without really saying it's over. And to lift the mandates without lifting the mandates. And if you've been following the if you've been following the news, then you probably noticed that in the last few days, Florida and 20 other states sued the CDC over the transportation mandate, which is one of the remaining mask mandates, right? The one that requires you to wear a mask on airplanes, that requires school kids to wear masks on school buses. And I think it's very interesting, the timing, because my guess is that the Biden administration wanted to lift that transportation mandate anyway. If you look at the financial disclosures from the airlines, travel is way down. And part of it is because of jab mandates, and you can't go somewhere if you're not jabbed, right? But that's a smaller group, because I think in the US, 68% of adults are vaccinated now. But
I thought it was real quick. I thought it was higher than that. About 68%. Is that what you
fully,
said?
well, quote unquote, fully vaccinated.
Oh, gotcha. So maybe higher that got like 1 shot or 2 shots. And fully vaccinated, just for the record, that is now 2 of Johnson & Johnson, but 3 of Moderna and Pfizer. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Or is it 4 now, or is it 17 now? Or what is fully vaccinated now?
I think it's going to depend on who you're asking.
Right.
That definition has gotten very fluid. And I think they're also different. They're using it differently for different purposes, right?
Okay.
So without getting into all of that, and sticking with the airline thing, that their numbers are way down. And one thing we know for sure is people hate those mask mandates. Everybody knows that, and the airlines have more or less at their management level indicated to Congress and the administration that they want those mandates removed. So with the combination of the political pressures and the combination of the pressures from the airlines themselves and the general population, I think Biden would have lifted those. I don't know why they've been slow. That's sort of the last one, but I think it's to deal with that group of very liberal Democrat voters, and to give them a recognition, right?
Tip of the hat.
That their concerns are important too, and so they were slow to lift the airplane mandates. But DeSantis was very clever in filing this lawsuit now, because Biden would have lifted the mandate anyway. And so if he does it, it'll look like he's done it because Florida sued.
Yeah, that's good. That's shrewd. Jesus, sometimes Christians, it's like, yeah, we want to be as innocent as doves, but we're called to be also as shrewd as vipers. And Jesus even, he tells the parable of the steward, the manager in his master's house, and his master goes on a long trip, and he knows that he's probably about to be fired. And so he's trying to, to give himself an off-ramp. And so he goes to all these people who are, debtors to his master, and he lowers their debt. Do you owe my master 100 bushels of wheat? Go ahead and make it 70, and he, down the line. And so he's creating relationships and network for himself, so that when the master puts down the hammer and he no longer has a good rapport with the master, he has a good rapport with other people. And you would think, he's stealing from his master, but what's surprising about the end of the parable, when Jesus kind of reveals the moral, is that Jesus uses this parable to illustrate the principle of shrewdness. And he says the sons of darkness are more shrewd than the sons of light. And what he's saying ultimately is that Christians should be shrewd. And it takes a lot of discernment and a lot of spiritual maturity and understanding of the Word of God to find this razor edge line in between deception and shrewdness. Christians are not called to be deceitful, but we are called to be shrewd. I like Doug Wilson. He's had a really helpful commentary throughout the last 2 years of madness with cultural commentary. And one of the things he talks about is, well, is it a sin to wear camouflage in battle? Isn't that a deception? Isn't that a lie? You're telling, somebody that I'm not here when you actually are here. And so he just is trying to show that there are ways of being shrewd, but that is not immoral. That's not an outright falsehood or a lie that would be a sin. And so I think that all that, back to Ron DeSantis, I think that is a shrewd play that is not wrong, but commendable. Wait, real quick, before you go, do me a favor. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, click the bell so you'll be notified with all our new content as it comes out on a daily basis. And if you're willing to support this ministry, you can do so by going to rightresponseministries.com/donate. Thanks so much. God bless.